Max Baer Jr. spent 9 years working on the set of the Beverly Hillbillies with Irene Ryan. On television they looked like the perfect comedy pair. Audiences watched them joke and laugh together every week. But the truth behind the cameras was very different. When filming stopped, their relationship was often tense. They argued about dialogue, timing, and how certain scenes should be performed. Their personalities were strong, and both of them cared deeply about doing their jobs well. Sometimes their disagreements were loud enough that other actors could hear them. Guest stars occasionally felt uncomfortable around Ryan, and some crew members quietly rolled their eyes during difficult moments. For many years Max Baer Jr. chose not to talk about those experiences. He stayed silent out of respect and professionalism. Now, decades later, he is the last surviving main cast member from that famous show. At the age of 88, he finally began speaking honestly about the woman who played Granny. He talked about what she taught him, the private struggles she kept hidden from most people, and the painful truth about the illness that eventually took her life. Max Baer Jr. was born on December 4, 1937, in Oakland. From the moment he was born, his last name already meant something to the public. His father, Max Baer Sr., was not just a successful athlete. He was a celebrity whose fights were talked about across the country. Long before his son could even speak, the Baer name was already part of sports history. One of the most famous moments of his father's career happened on June 14, 1934, at Madison Square Garden. On that night, Max Baer Sr. fought the huge Italian champion Primo Carnera for the heavyweight title. The fight was dramatic and chaotic. Carnera was knocked down again and again. By the 11th round he had fallen 11 times, and the referee finally stopped the match to protect him. That victory made Max Baer Sr. the heavyweight champion of the world. Although he lost the title less than a year later to James J. Braddock in 1935, his reputation had already been established. Over his career he earned 71 victories, 13 losses, and an incredible 53 knockouts. Those numbers made people pay attention whenever they heard his name. Because of that fame, Max Baer Jr. did not grow up as an ordinary child. He was the son of a man who seemed larger than life. Stories about his father sounded almost like movie plots. In many ways the Baer family really did live in a world that mixed sports, entertainment, and public attention. Max Baer Sr. had a powerful personality that combined toughness and charm. Crowds loved watching him both inside and outside the boxing ring. That larger-than-life character influenced the home environment in which his son was raised. Max Baer Jr.'s background also reflected a mixture of cultures. His father's family had German-Jewish roots connected to the Alsace-Lorraine region of Europe. His mother, Mary Ellen Sullivan, came from an Irish-American background. Growing up in a household with both traditions meant that young Max experienced a mix of identities and perspectives during a time when cultural heritage was taken very seriously in America. One of the most visible symbols of that identity came from his father's boxing career. Max Baer Sr. often wore a Star of David on his boxing trunks. He especially did this during the build-up to his fight with Max Schmeling in 1933. Schmeling had become associated with praise from Nazi supporters in Germany at that time, so Baer's decision to display the symbol carried powerful meaning. Some people saw it as pride in his heritage. Others saw it as defiance against Nazi ideology. Still others believed it was clever showmanship designed to attract attention. Whatever the motivation, it became part of the Baer family story that the public never forgot. The family's connection to boxing did not stop with Max Baer Sr. Max Baer Jr.'s uncle, Buddy Baer, also became a well-known fighter. Born in 1915, Buddy Baer built his own reputation as a powerful heavyweight boxer. One of his most dramatic fights happened on May 23, 1941, when he challenged the legendary champion Joe Louis at Griffith Stadium. Early in the match Buddy knocked Louis through the ropes, something that almost never happened to the champion. The fight quickly became controversial. In the 6th round Louis knocked Buddy down just after the bell ended the round. Because of the confusion and arguments in the ring, Buddy's manager refused to leave the area, and the referee eventually disqualified him. The strange ending meant Buddy lost his chance at the title. Years later his punching power was still respected, and in 2003 he was included in the list of the 100 greatest punchers by the ring. After his boxing career ended, Buddy Baer also worked in Hollywood, appearing in many films and television shows during the 1950s and 1960s. Because of these connections, Max Baer Jr. grew up surrounded by two very different worlds. In one room there was the rough, competitive environment of professional boxing. In another room there was the glamorous but unpredictable world of Hollywood. Both industries were part of his family history. That environment forced him to learn early how to build his own identity. Living under the shadow of a famous parent can be difficult. People constantly compare you to the legend who came before you. The situation became even more complicated because Max Baer Sr. had also tried acting. In 1933 he appeared in the film The Prizefighter and the Lady, acting alongside Myrna Loy and even sharing the screen with Primo Carnera. The film studio Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer promoted him heavily, presenting him as a rare combination of athlete and movie star. That kind of publicity made the Baer name even more famous. Then tragedy struck the family. On November 21, 1959, Max Baer Sr. died suddenly from a massive heart attack while staying in a Hollywood hotel. He was only 50 years old and had been preparing to film television commercials. Even in his final moments he showed his well-known sense of humor. When the hotel operator asked if he needed the house doctor, he joked that he needed a people doctor. His son was only 21 at the time. Losing a father at that age can feel like the ground suddenly disappears beneath your feet. Yet the public expectations surrounding the Baer name did not disappear. Instead of following his father directly into boxing, Max Baer Jr. chose a different path. During his time at Christian Brothers High School in Sacramento, he became a talented athlete in several sports. Rather than focusing on just one activity, he earned varsity letters in 4 different sports. Achieving that requires not only physical talent but also discipline and determination. He lived in Sacramento's Land Park neighborhood, which provided a stable environment while he was growing up. Golf eventually became one of his strongest talents. He won the junior championship at the Sacramento Open twice. Those victories showed that he was more than just a celebrity's son. In 1968 he even competed in the Pro-Am portion of the San Diego Open alongside Charlie Sifford. Sifford had broken racial barriers on the PGA Tour, and their partnership was meaningful. Together they won the Pro-Am event, proving that Baer could genuinely compete in the sport. Before committing to acting, Max Baer Jr. also served in the United States Air Force. He worked as a medical technician at Gunter Air Force Base. That role required serious training and responsibility. It also placed him far away from Hollywood glamour and taught him discipline through real-world service. After completing his military service he attended Santa Clara University. In 1959 he graduated with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a minor in philosophy. The combination of business and philosophy gave him a practical understanding of both money and deeper thinking. Ironically, someone with that educational background later became famous for playing a character widely considered simple-minded. His first experience with acting actually happened much earlier. When he was only 11 years old in 1949, he appeared in a stage production of Goldilocks and the Three Bears at the Blackpool Pavilion. Performing in a real theater at such a young age gave him early experience in front of a live audience. His entry into professional acting happened almost by accident in 1960. He happened to be having lunch at Warner Brothers when a studio executive noticed that he looked somewhat like James Garner, who had recently left the show Maverick. The executive asked if he had ever considered acting. Baer Jr. responded in a very practical way by asking about the salary. When he was offered $250 per week, which was a respectable amount in 1960, he agreed to sign a 1-year contract. He quickly began appearing in popular television programs of the time, including Maverick, 77 Sunset Strip, Cheyenne, Surfside 6, Hawaiian Eye, Bronco, and Sugarfoot. These roles were not glamorous, but they provided valuable training. He learned how television production worked, how to memorize lines quickly, and how to adjust to different directors and sets. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall, with a strong build and recognizable last name, he always attracted attention when entering a room. Yet that famous surname was both a blessing and a burden. Some casting directors saw opportunity. Others assumed he was simply the son of a celebrity trying to enter the industry. All those experiences prepared him for the moment that would change his life. In 1962 he auditioned for the role of Jethro Bodine in the Beverly Hillbillies. On the same day, Irene Ryan was auditioning for the role of Granny. During lunch she invited him to a nearby restaurant and bought him martinis to calm his nerves. Baer was not used to drinking much, and the alcohol affected him quickly. When he returned for the screen test he accidentally bumped his shoulder into the cabin door frame that was part of the set. Instead of pretending it had not happened, he smiled foolishly at the doorframe and said, "Excuse me." That awkward moment perfectly captured the clumsy personality of Jethro. The casting directors loved it, and he won the role. The show became one of the most popular comedies in television history and ran for 9 seasons until 1971. However, success created a new problem. After the series ended, many casting directors could only see him as Jethro Bodine. Even though he was educated, disciplined, and capable of playing other roles, he struggled with typecasting. Being strongly identified with a single character can make it difficult for an actor to move forward, especially when millions of viewers believe they already know exactly who you are. Years later in interviews, Max Baer Jr. admitted that there was a long period when he could not even watch the Beverly Hillbillies. He did not want to talk about it either. The reason was simple but painful. Everywhere he went, people only saw Jethro Bodine. Producers could not imagine him as anything else. When he walked into an office, they did not see a trained actor with a university degree. They saw the big, goofy country boy from television. Because of that image, he felt it was impossible to ask for serious roles like a neurosurgeon or a pilot. The industry had already decided what he was supposed to be forever. Instead of giving up, he chose another path. When the normal opportunities disappeared, he created his own. Rather than waiting for Hollywood to offer him something different, he decided to build a project from the ground up. In 1974 he wrote, produced, directed, and starred in a crime drama called Macon County Line. The film was made with a relatively small budget of about $225,000, which was not much money for a movie even at that time. But the results surprised everyone. The film became a huge financial success. In North America alone it earned around $18.8 million, and worldwide reports suggested the total revenue reached more than $30 million. Some estimates even placed the total higher when film rentals were included. For a low-budget film, the profit was extraordinary. The success proved that Baer was capable of much more than sitcom comedy. He was a filmmaker with real instincts for storytelling and business. Even with that success, the shadow of Jethro never completely disappeared. Once the public strongly connects an actor with one character, that label can follow them for the rest of their career. No amount of success easily washes it away. When the Beverly Hillbillies first premiered on CBS on September 26, 1962, nobody predicted how quickly it would explode in popularity. The show did not just perform well. It became a national sensation. Within 6 weeks it climbed to the #1 position in American television ratings. Millions of viewers tuned in every week. The numbers were enormous for the time. During the early seasons, the audience reached tens of millions of people across the country. The second season made the phenomenon even bigger. Television ratings soared again, turning the show into a regular part of American life. One episode in particular became legendary. On January 8, 1964, the episode titled "The Giant Jackrabbit" aired. It attracted about 23 million households. That translated to roughly 50 million viewers watching the same program at the same moment. At the time, that represented an enormous portion of the entire country. Families gathered around their televisions and watched the same comedy together. During that sudden wave of popularity, Max Baer Jr. effectively became Jethro in the public imagination. One day he was simply another young actor trying to find steady work. The next day his face was instantly recognizable everywhere. Jethro was written as a lovable but very slow-thinking character, a giant who often misunderstood even simple situations. The strange irony was that Baer himself was highly educated and thoughtful. He had graduated from Santa Clara University with a degree in business administration and a minor in philosophy. Playing someone so clueless required him to hide his intelligence. The writers sometimes played with that contrast in the show. In one episode, Jethro decides he wants to attend college in Beverly Hills. Because of the strange logic of the comedy, he somehow manages to graduate almost immediately without fully understanding what is happening around him. The joke worked because Baer could carefully control his performance. He had to make the confusion believable. Comedy requires precise timing. Every pause, every blank stare, every slow reaction had to land at exactly the right moment to make the audience laugh. Performing that kind of character once is challenging. Performing it consistently for years requires skill and discipline. The series continued for 9 seasons, running from late 1962 until March 23, 1971. In total it produced 274 episodes. Throughout most of its run, the show stayed near the top of the television ratings. It was the #1 program in America during its first 2 seasons. Baer appeared in every single episode alongside Buddy Ebsen, Irene Ryan, and Donna Douglas. That schedule meant constant work. A successful television series may look easy on screen, but behind the scenes it requires endless rehearsals, filming days, and pressure to deliver results week after week. As the show became more successful, Baer's salary increased significantly. In the beginning his pay was modest. But as the ratings climbed and the show became a cultural phenomenon, the cast members earned far more money. Television success turned the program into a powerful machine that generated enormous attention and revenue. Interestingly, the show did not end because audiences stopped watching. It ended because CBS decided to change its programming strategy. During the early 1970s the network removed many rural-themed shows from its schedule in what later became known as the Rural Purge. Executives believed they needed to attract younger, more urban audiences for advertisers. As a result, several popular programs were suddenly canceled even though they still had strong ratings. One joke at the time said that CBS had canceled every show that included a tree, including Lassie. It was a sweeping change rather than a gradual farewell. Despite criticism from many television reviewers, the audience loved the Beverly Hillbillies. Critics often dismissed it as silly or unsophisticated comedy. But viewers connected with its simple premise. The story followed a poor family that suddenly became rich after discovering oil on their land. They moved to Beverly Hills and found themselves surrounded by wealth, etiquette, and confusing social rules. Their honest country habits clashed with high society manners. That contrast produced endless humor. The show arrived during the 1960s, a decade filled with serious issues such as the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and massive cultural changes across the country. For many people the series provided a comforting escape. At the same time it quietly explored themes about class differences, prejudice, and misunderstanding between social groups. While critics often disliked the show, the audience felt that it belonged to them. During those 9 years, one relationship on the set had a powerful influence on Max Baer Jr. His connection with Irene Ryan was far more important than viewers realized. She was not only his co-star. She became something like a mentor. Ryan was about 59 years old when she won the role of Granny in 1962. Although the character appeared to be much older, Ryan herself was still energetic and determined. She had spent decades working in vaudeville and radio before television brought her this opportunity. In those earlier entertainment industries, performers learned discipline the hard way. Mistakes could end a career quickly. Ryan knew how difficult Hollywood could be for older actresses. Once women passed a certain age, roles became rare. Because of that reality, she fought strongly to secure the role of Granny. Once she had the part, she protected it with determination. On set she was not the warm grandmother that audiences saw on screen. Instead, she was sharp, focused, and extremely professional. She paid close attention to camera angles, lighting, and the precise placement of actors during scenes. She believed everyone on the set should care about those details just as much as she did. For Baer, who was younger and still learning, this attitude sometimes caused conflict. He later admitted that they argued frequently in the early years. Their voices occasionally rose as they debated timing or dialogue. Ryan demanded precision, and Baer was still discovering how to manage the pressure of a long-running television production. Some guest stars even felt nervous working around her because of her intensity. Yet beneath that strict attitude, she was protecting the quality of the show. Her method of teaching was direct rather than gentle. If Baer rushed a reaction, she told him immediately. If his timing was slightly off, she corrected him. She insisted that comedy required patience. Sometimes the difference between laughter and silence was only half a second of timing. Ryan did not offer praise easily. When she approved of something, it meant the performance truly deserved it. Over time, the early tension between them slowly changed into mutual respect. They learned each other's rhythm. Eventually, they could adjust scenes together with small gestures or quick glances. Ryan also understood something important about Baer's role. She recognized that Jethro worked because Baer was intelligent enough to control the performance. He was not playing a foolish character by accident. He was deliberately shaping the humor. At one point, she gave him advice that stayed with him for the rest of his career. She told him never to believe the character he played. In other words, he should perform the role fully, but he must never confuse the character with the person he truly was. That lesson became extremely valuable later when the public began identifying him completely with Jethro. While working together, Baer also noticed an unfair pattern in the industry. When Buddy Ebsen disagreed with a script or suggested changes, people described him as a strong leader. When Irene Ryan expressed the same kind of opinions, she was sometimes labeled difficult. The behavior was similar, but the reaction was different. Ryan understood this double standard very well. After years of fighting for roles, she refused to reduce her expectations simply to make others comfortable. Behind her strong personality, she also carried private fears. The entertainment industry had never provided stability for her. Decades of uncertain work had taught her that success could disappear quickly. Because of that, she worked harder than anyone else on the set. She arrived early, prepared carefully, and pushed herself even when she felt exhausted. As time passed, there were signs that her health was weakening. She experienced headaches, confusion, and physical fatigue. She also smoked heavily, which placed additional strain on her body. Yet she continued performing because the opportunity meant too much to abandon. When the Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971, Ryan could have retired comfortably. Instead, she chose to pursue another challenge. She accepted a role in the Broadway musical Pippin. Performing in a Broadway production required tremendous stamina. Actors often performed 8 shows every week. Despite the physical demands, Ryan's performance impressed critics and audiences. In 1973, she received a nomination for the prestigious Tony Awards. Unfortunately, her health collapsed during that period. In March 1973, she suffered a stroke while the show was still running. Doctors soon discovered that she had a serious brain tumor along with heart disease. She returned to California for treatment. On April 26, 1973, she died at the age of 70. Some reports later suggested that she might not have been told the full truth about how severe her illness was. She reportedly believed she would recover and return to the stage. That belief reflected her lifelong dedication to performing. After the television series ended, Baer initially believed that his fame would lead to new opportunities. Instead, he faced rejection. Casting directors continued to see only Jethro. The financial pressure became so serious that he briefly considered leaving acting altogether and working as a car salesman. He later joked that starvation was his motivation to create his own film project. That desperation led directly to making County Line. The success of that movie demonstrated that Baer had the ability to control his own career rather than depend entirely on casting decisions. Even so, the connection to his famous character remained complicated. When a television reunion special was planned in 1981, Baer declined to participate because he did not want to return to the Jethro image. Years later, when the film adaptation The Beverly Hillbillies was released, Buddy Ebsen appeared briefly in a cameo role. Baer was not included, and reports suggested that the situation disappointed him. As time passed, the original cast members gradually passed away. Today Max Baer Jr. remains the last surviving major member of that iconic television family. His life story contains both remarkable success and personal challenges. Over the years he has pursued business ventures, including plans for a Beverly Hillbillies-themed casino project, although legal and zoning issues prevented the idea from becoming reality. Through everything, one truth remains clear. Max Baer Jr. was never simply the foolish character that millions of viewers laughed at. He was a determined, intelligent man who adapted to changing circumstances and survived the difficult realities of the entertainment industry. When he speaks about Irene Ryan now, his tone carries deep respect rather than nostalgia. He credits her strict standards for improving his skills and her honesty for helping him stay grounded when fame threatened to trap him inside one role forever. In a strange way, the woman who fought so hard for her final opportunity became the mentor who taught him how to live beyond a character. The show gave them fame, but the work they shared during those years created a legacy that still resonates decades later.